Wherever I went in different postings, whether it's Azerbaijan or Brazil or Istanbul, I took my bicycle with me and tried to explore the possibilities of cycling, both in terms of functional transportation, of sports, and of leisure. I should see how this works. No. Yes. So I couldn't find a picture of myself as 2 years old, but it all started from the beginning. And as I was saying, cycling comes with an expansion of life. You grow up, you go to the primary school, to the secondary school, and the cycle is always a part of your life. So the Netherlands is a country, a medium small sized country, where we have like 37,000 kilometers of segregated bike lines, and that is bike lanes. That's about 25% of all the roads that we have in our country. And our country is a little bit bigger than Istanbul, with 70 million inhabitants like Istanbul, but probably 2 or 3 times the size of the province of Istanbul. So it's not very big, but there's a lot of cycling lanes. And more than 1/4 of all the trips are made by bicycle, covering 17 billion kilometers each year, and that means 3 kilometers of cycling per day per person. So this has not always been the case. In the 60s, of course, in the post-war days, cycling became more and more the way of transport, and there were a lot of bicycles. But in the 60s, when the car became more accessible to people, more and more cars were gaining the ground and took preference. And up to a level that in the 70s, when the number of cycle kilometers had fallen back to half what it was before, but the number of deaths and of accidents and of child deaths grew exponentially. There was a protest raising, and you see the picture here in Amsterdam, where people protested that it should stop the murder of children by the cars. And that revolution in thinking started a more bike-friendly policy orientation that until today continued. That's the wrong direction. So just to give you a few more data on bicycle use in the Netherlands, I mentioned the territory. In the Netherlands, there's more bikes than people. I think that many people know that. We're estimating 22 million of bikes for 70 million people. The bicycle is the second most common means of transport, and 1/3 of Dutch use cycle on a typical day. And in the modal shift, cycling has 28% share. Some more data here. You can see that in the bicycles make up, as I said, 27%, so 1/4 of all trips. For the distance up to 5 kilometers, cycles are used. And this part, of course, when the distance grows, between 5 to 10 kilometers or between 10 to 15 kilometers, this goes down. But at the same time, and you can't see that in the statistics, you see with the rise of electric bikes, these shifts may slightly changing, also benefiting bikes and electric bikes. So let me see something. Yes. So why is cycling in the Netherlands so popular and successful? And there's many factors to that. First of all, geography. I think we have a flat country. The cities are relatively close to each other. It's a high density population. And also the built environment adds to that. But it's also, I think, human factors, like I mentioned after this revolution, the planning, the bike-friendly policies, the legislation, and I will mention a few examples of that. Culture and education, they play important roles. I think this mental shift is very important in making a bike policy and a bike practice work. So if we talk about planning and infrastructure, I think it's a persistent planning of creating space for cycling by cycle path and tracks, intersections, parking possibilities, privileged routes in the city, and make it less attractive for cars than for cycles to use to move around in the city, and also create and adapt your urban planning to that. And if possible, to make physically separate bi-directional cycle path available, giving space, and that's in Netherlands, I think the thumbstone, 1.5 meter for one direction for cycling, up to 2 meters if you talk about the new projects that are being made now. And exclude motorists and scooters that go faster than 25 kilometers to use that path. For accessibility and intermodality, the bike sharing systems are a very good way of making it broader, accessible to everybody, and also to make the interconnection between different modes of transport. When you go to the station using a cycle, leaving it in the parking space in the station, go by train, take a cycle, which you can take from the rent from the train system, and go to your destinations. Also interesting to see that 40% of train passengers in the Netherlands, they arrive by bicycle and park their bicycle with the station. Culture, I think what we have seen that where in the past maybe cycles were perceived, and you see that still in many countries, are something for the poor. I think the cycle now has become something that is cool, and that is also something that people really cherish, and they have more bikes maybe instead of more cars, and they invest a lot in higher and higher quality cycling. It has had a positive impact on the image of your personal image, but I think also of the image of the country or the cities. And it helps in that sense also to promote tourism, so it also brings economic gains. Training and education is very important to make both the drivers in the cars aware, and in the exams to make cycling a part of their criteria, and also children to give in the schools lessons for how to behave in traffic and to get a diploma, and you see the pictures indicated to that. Finally, policies, legislation. In the Netherlands we have an insurance policy, an insurance practice, where when an accident happens, the presumption is that the car is guilty and not the cycling. So only when there's intent and clear proven intent on the cyclist's behavior, unless that is proven, the car will be liable for the damage in an accident. Well, I will not go into all the details of benefits of cycling, and that will take too much of time. But I have 2 minutes, so I really have to speed up. Just to show here maybe the graph that you see on the right hand, when people indicate where do they feel relaxed, in what kind of transport mode, you see that on the human-oriented transport, the two on the right, it starts very low, so the relaxation is highest, so people feel more comfortable in walking or cycling. Then, I think this was also to give some examples on practices, how infrastructure can be realized or have been realized in the Netherlands, and to visualize this. I think it's the example on the right above is about the intersections, because it makes no sense to have paths created. What you often see, unfortunately also here in Istanbul, you have very beautiful biking lanes and suddenly they stop in the middle of nowhere. And if they come somewhere, how do you integrate and make it possible to get to other roads? So this is a very high tech, high bro intersection, but it shows that you need to think about how cycles can be prioritized in intersection projects. I mentioned already the intermodality and the way of checking in at the parking of the train stations and change your bike without bringing necessarily your own bike on board. In the left down under, you see a project that we see increasingly now that high speed or bike speed lanes are created between cities, like 20, 30, 40 kilometers without, this is between the cities, to give a real alternative to cars. I think the name high-speed cycling roads is a little bit maybe controversial because we don't want the association with the speed and the high-speed lanes of the cars, but they are very popular, and especially with the electric bikes, I think they are both for transport but also for people who, on their leisure, giving good alternatives. And finally, and I think there probably Dries will take over, this is not a car-free zone on the right, but it's a new concept that you see a lot in the cities where the roads have become roads where the cars are considered guests. And that means that they can use those roads, but they have to take care, and they are the guests. So the cycles and are the owners of that street, and the cars can be part of that. And I don't know whether this will work. This is to come back where I started as a child. I think it is, here you see on how children can easily cycle, and this is also kind of an image, hopefully, of the hope and the future that we have for the planetary cities that were just mentioned in the earlier presentation. So thank you for your attention, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Arjen. Now we're ready to listen to Dries.
Perfect, and also thanks for having me here. My name is Dries Meers. I come from Belgium, the city of Ghent, which is, for Belgian standards, a rather big city. But if I compare to Istanbul and the surroundings, it's a really small city of about 265,000 inhabitants. Yeah, there's my presentation. And I want to start with a question. And I took a night picture of the city. And I was wondering who believes me when I say that we managed to change the mobility patterns in our inner city overnight, from one day to another. Is there anybody? No, unfortunately. But as you can see, Ghent, I will come back to that question in the end of my presentation. As you can see from the picture, it's a beautiful city. And it's not only me saying that, it's also Lonely Planet saying it. Ghent is Belgium's best kept secret. And there's a picture of the skyline here. And I won't do this city promo all over the presentation. Don't worry, I will make a link to mobility. And I will have to go a bit back in time to make that link. And that's the reason why Ghent is such a beautiful city. It's because it's an ancient city. 500 years ago, when Columbus set sail for India and ended up in America, Ghent was one of the major cities in the region. It has similar population sizes as Florence, so it was at its greatest compared to other cities in the region. But therefore, Ghent has a very big ancient city center with many narrow streets, as you can see in the picture here. And giving this old city structure, very small, narrow streets, we have to make a lot of decisions on who to allow in streets, as in many streets we cannot allow cyclists, pedestrians, cars, trucks at the same time. The structure of the city is not suited for that. Enough of history, although I have to go back to 2015, a few years ago, when our Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan was approved by our City Council. And in this mobility plan, we put the focus on improving the livability in the city, creating or maintaining a good accessibility for all modes, and to enhance a modal shift, a bit as you explained just before. And this plan consists of 3 main parts. The first part was a speed plan. In the inner city, we lowered the speed limits everywhere, or almost everywhere, to 30 or 20 kilometers an hour. Now we are also putting that speed limit in the districts surrounding our inner city. A second part of the plan was a parking plan, where we were focusing mainly on the right place for bikes and the right places to park cars close to the city, but not always in the city, obviously. And the last part, and I will elaborate further on that, was a circulation plan. And that is the plan that we implemented overnight in April 2017, so just a few years ago. Within this mobility plan in 2015, we set the targets of a modal shift, and we had a quite ambitious plan there. We wanted to reduce car dependency of the inhabitants of our city, and we wanted to decrease the car use from 55 to 41% in a period of 8 years. So we found that quite ambitious at the time, and I will tell you later if we managed to reach that target. Back to the circulation plan, and also back to that narrow streets I was speaking about. By the time that we were making the plan, we noticed that there was way too much motorized traffic in our city, with all the negative effects that were also mentioned in the previous presentations. But also we had a lot of transit traffic, through traffic, that was still driving straight to the city center without having a destination there. So instead of taking the ring road, which you can see on the picture, still many people were just driving straight to our city center, and that's something that we didn't like because of all the negative effects it had. So that was about 11% of the traffic, but also another 30% almost drove straight to the city center to have a destination on the other side. And these, let's say, 40% of movements we wanted to address in our circulation plan. And what we did first was to, here in green you can see the car-free zone that we had back in 2017. We enlarged that by over 100%, and that's small-scale city, so it's about the size of 10 football fields, so still quite big. And that's really in the center of the inner city, so where all the historical buildings are, where the tourist attractions are, and so on. So that was the first step. A second step was then to divide the city into different sectors. And you can think of it as Ghent being a very tasty pie, and you cut it in 6 pieces. And that's what you can see here in red. We put traffic filters where the sectors get to another. So you cannot, you're not allowed, or most people are not allowed, to go from one sector to another by car. By walking and cycling, obviously you can. But if you want to go from one sector to another by car, you have to get back to the ring road first and then enter the other sector using the access road of that specific sector. So for that we had to change the driving directions in 80 streets overnight. So that was quite challenging for us. So that's basically the concept that we introduced. It's not rocket science, I think. But we did that in 2017, and a lot of things changed after this time. So first of all, we enlarged the place where you could easily walk or cycle. We even started, and that was something that we didn't have before, strangely, streets where you can only walk. Before, always when you were shopping, still people could intervene with their bikes. So in these shopping streets, cyclists are no longer allowed between 11 and 6 in the afternoon. But also, with reducing the number of cars in our city center, it made up space for other purposes. For instance, to separate the traffic flows between cyclists, motorized traffic, and public transport, which was beneficial for the 3 modes separately. We also installed or increased the capacity of the park and rides to give people alternatives to reach the city center by other modes, such as public transport or bikes, instead of parking their car in the middle of the city, where we still have, by the way, underground parking possibilities. But it also gave opportunities for us to give space for terraces, for playing, as you can see on one of the picture here, but just for relaxing and leisure. And we even managed, because in the city center, the car-free zone, parking on-street parking is not allowed there. Pedestrians are allowed to use the whole street as they like. And we managed to replace that parking by a park. Then how did we get there? And I think that was already elaborated in the plenary session that I also attended. There's obviously a big process. You cannot introduce such a drastic plan from one day to another if you didn't have this trajectory with participation and information. My focus, as I work mainly on data, was on the evaluation of the plan, and I will share some of the results with you. So the question, did we match our ambitions? And I put the 3 ambitions there on the slide. First of all, we had a model shift ambition. And there we can easily say that we reached that ambition even 2 years in advance. We do a 3-yearly questionnaire among the inhabitants of the city, and where we derive the model split from. And there we found that already in 2018, the car usage dropped under 40%. So 61%, thank you, of the movements are done using sustainable modes, walking, cycling, or public transport. And as you can see on the graph, it's mainly people who started cycling. Not much people started using public transport more often. We even had a decrease in the amount of people walking. But cycling was, the new big thing in our city. And this is an example, and I will elaborate only on 2 numbers. We did a lot of counting of traffic in our city as well. And we found that in our inner city, in the heart of the city, the number of cyclists increased by 50%, while the number of cars, motorized traffic, decreased by 37%. And that's only a year and a half after we implemented the plan. So that was pretty spectacular for us to see. I mentioned as well the livability, and I pick out 2 indicators that we use to measure livability. And one of them is the air quality. We also put out measurements to evaluate the plan. And there we found that on general, the nitrogen dioxide emissions improved by 18%. But in the heart of the city, where the effect was the biggest, the effects were even bigger. Also, the number of accidents and the number of traffic victims within the inner city and on the ring road decreased by 33%. So a lot of good results, and this is just a picture of the same spot. One of the traffic filters I mentioned in the beginning. You see a few years before the implementation of the plan and a few weeks after the plan was implemented. So still many people moving there, but instead of cars, it changed merely to cyclists. So to answer the question I posed in the beginning, yes, it's a bit short to say that we changed everything overnight, and it was a big planning process. We did a speed plan and a parking plan, but this circulation plan that we implemented overnight really had a huge effect on the way that people move in our city. And if you want to learn a bit more about our cycling policies, I invite you all to come to Ghent next year, where we will host a conference on cycling in June.
Thank you very much. Yes. Nermin, I would like to give the floor to you for your presentation.
Okay, now, well, hello. Thanks for having me here today. I'm very happy, especially to be contributing to this amazing urban forum here, taking place in my hometown, Istanbul, where I also started my academic journey in urban planning. I'm Nermin Varol. I'm working as a junior cities engagement officer at Uijterlinde Mobility. which is the biggest European network focused on innovative urban mobility. And our headquarters are based in Barcelona, and I am part of the team Innovation Hub Central that is located in Munich, Germany. Today I'm going to give you the presentation on the solutions we supported as Uijterlinde Mobility for a more inclusive mobility. I would like to start with a brief overview, very brief overview on the organization itself, on why we exist and how we do it, how we do our programs, and then I will move on illustrating how we put our mission into place through the couple of project examples I brought here in the topic of urban, inclusive mobility. So, why we exist? Our world is in the midst of climate emergency, right? And this led European Commission to set its climate neutrality target by 2050 via its climate target plan 2030. And this required like an urgent change in our cities, how we live in our cities and how we design our mobility choices. And therefore, in 2019, Uijterlinde Mobility was founded by EIT, our mother organization, European Institute of Innovation and Technology, which is the independent body of EU. And yes, so we are there to help EU to accomplish its ambitious climate reduction goals in the transport sector. And how we do it? We do it with innovation. We take the cities in our focus, like everything we do, everything we organize is centered around cities challenges, cities needs and citizens. And we take these, we bring these into our programs, such as we have training programs where we create entrepreneurial talents. We have innovation programs where we fund and pilot market-ready solutions in the cities. And we support startups, we accelerate startups, and we invest in those that are firmly in line with our mission as well. And throughout all these activities, we match and connect the sectors from business, academia, from public institutions, obviously. So we create an ecosystem that looks like this. By far, we are innovating with more than 300 organizations. That includes also 200 startups in more than 33 countries. And this is the impact we created so far. As emphasized, everything we do is centered around cities. Cities are key in our activities. Cities are where we deploy and pilot our solutions. And since we have been established, we have achieved more than 150 pilots in over 60 cities all around Europe. And within Uijterlinde Mobility, one area that is indeed very relevant to our mission is inclusivity, inclusive mobility. And we recognize that some groups of people in urban mobility are excluded from some certain activities, components of urban mobility, and these are can be the people at the school age with low income, with physical disability, and so on. And so we want to bring in the solutions that address the needs of these groups of people and focus on these specific solutions as well. And to show you how we do it, I will give you a quick tour through the projects that I brought here that come from our diverse programs. And first off, yes. So, many of our cities are still majorly car dependent, right? That's why we are holding this session here today. And due to several reasons, in which let me name the safety factor that is the most common to vulnerable groups to choose private cars. This can be seen more of like a taboo in some communities, and this has led our cities to look for solutions to break this taboo and encourage the behavioral change as also, for example, to reach the level of the societies in Netherlands, for example. And so the cities are constantly looking for solutions to encourage their citizens to choose sustainable modes of transport. And one effective solution that has been the economic incentive mechanisms, as addressed by these two projects we supported last year and this year, reactivity and bicyfication. And the main goal here in these initiatives is to provide a software solution to promote a model shift through gamification and rewarding. For the city of Braga, for example, in Portugal, bicyfication was the first try last year, and it worked very well for them. Therefore, they also wanted to apply for the reactivity this year, and which covers, unlike bicyfication, reactivity covered all kind of modes of transport, including active modes and public transportation. Where bicyfication's approach was also well accepted is the city of Istanbul as the other second pilot city last year. And our project partners from Istanbul has reported really like a very positive feedback from the users of the solution. And so I think it's been a great way to show that like the inhabitants of Istanbul can be also motivated to biking for their daily commutes. And estimating that there are like many local residents of Istanbul here, maybe even youth experience the impact of the solution provided by Pinbike yourselves. So if so, I would be curious to know also your feedback. Yeah, moving on. In terms of safety, as I mentioned, and quality, of course, current public transportation systems have still room for improvement, especially for the needs of women, kids, and people with disabilities. Therefore, I also brought this example, Impact here, as it's exactly trying to address these issues to help cities improve their current public transportation systems with citizen feedback. Essentially, this is, you can imagine it as an app as well, and where you can report on your journey. And together with the Croatian city, this project is also piloted in Istanbul. And the fun fact is that the pilot is taking place just now. And so it's still at the early stage to observe the impact of the project, but I wanted to bring it up here to let you know the opportunity that is offered to the people of Istanbul and make you be part of it. And it's the app called Vizgo, so feel free to download it if I encourage you to check it out. And all right, this. What about inclusivity of active mobility, right? Such as cycling. And here is an inclusive e-bike pilot that we supported. The solution is exactly as in the picture here, and it's essentially to show that ever-rising popular cargo and e-bikes, as the sustainable transport options can be also designed in a more inclusive way, that is such as for the people with a wheelchair. And public space, right? It's also an area where urban mobility professionals are key players, and a very cool initiative here, Furnish, with its third edition, including the kids. And based on the tactical urbanism approach, it's this kind of temporary interventions we believe is a great way to show alternative ways of space uses besides cars. And it aimed to co-design and co-manufacture with kids, with citizens, which is also a way to foster sense of community and inclusion, and lets the cities experiment what actually works for them and what not, and then they can ultimately decide on the right funding allocations for the permanent projects. And so these were the examples, a couple of examples for cities, and what cities needs are the enthusiastic urban professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs to initiate and test these kind of innovative solutions, right? And therefore, education and training are crucial, especially for women who are underrepresented in the transport sector, despite being the main users of public transportation as well as other modes of transport. And so with these two programs, Women in Urban Mobility Network and EIT Supernovas program, we also aim to bridge this knowledge gap and empower women into leading roles in the entire spectrum of urban mobility sector. And yes, finally, among women, what might not seen as accessible as we think often is cycling, because we have seen that many women are afraid of biking or cycling in the city, or they didn't even learn how to ride a bike, right? And therefore, I want to conclude with this very impactful, socially impactful initiative, Tandem Women in Cycling, which is essentially the training program, targeting the women who want to empower the women in their communities to ride, to bike. We already offered this program twice in the last 2 years, and due to the continuing success, we might offer it again next year. And yes, that was it from my side. Hope it's been inspiring to some of you, either as a city official or as an individual. I'm happy to answer questions in the discussion part.
I would like to thank all our presenters for their perspective on this topic. I think we have seen some fantastic examples. A lot of intriguing questions were raised as well. Since we started late, I think we can use a little bit time and end the session a little bit later than originally planned. I suggest that we can use a 10 minutes of question and answer, comments, discussion time. So from the participants, from the floor here, any questions to our presenters? Any comments? Yes, please.
Ben Özgür adım. Öncelikle çok teşekkür ediyorum. Ben yaklaşık 10 yıldır İstanbul'da ulaşım aracı olarak bisiklet kullanıyorum. Bütün zorluklara rağmen. Bir gecede gerçekten o sihirli değnek elimizde olsa Ghent gibi İstanbul'u da değiştirebilsek. Hepimizin bildiği gibi sorunlar İstanbul'da maalesef çok fazla. Bisiklet İstanbul'da tanınmıyor gibi. Bisiklet yollarımız var. Fakat bir örnek vereyim size. Yenikapı'da bisiklet yolunu kullanırken mavi olan yere mangal yapıyorlar yazın. Ve mangal yapan şahıs diyor ki burası mangal için ayrılmış. Her şeyin başında diyoruz ya, eğitim, gerçekten eğitim şart. O bizi otobana yönlendiriyor. Burası sizin kullanacağınız yol değil diye. İBB birçok etkinlikler yapıyor. Empati yönünde, işte durağan bir bisikletin yanından İETT şoförleri geçiyorlar. Fakat biz İETT şoförleriyle yan yana giderken durmuyoruz. O bisikleti kullanıyoruz ve inanır mısınız o 1,5 metre, hayır 1,5 metre değil, bir karış yolu kaldırım kenarında bırakmıyorlar ve üzerimize sürüyorlar. Birçok kez bunu dile getirdik. İşte onlar gerekli önlemleri alacaklarını söylediler. Fakat maalesef birçok canımızı trafik kazasında kaybettik. Kaybetmeye de devam ediyoruz. Bu bizi çok üzüyor. Fazlasıyla üzüyor. Bunun için birçok farkındalık etkinlikleri yapıyoruz. Geçen haftadan örnek vermek istiyorum. Bir Caddebostan tarafında bisiklet sürüşü olacaktı ve bazı yollar trafiğe kapatıldı. Sosyal medyada inanır mısınız? O insanlar neredeyse bisiklet kullananları linç edecek şekilde yorumlar yaptılar. İşte neden yollar kapatılıyor? Biz dedik ki o zaman biz otomobilsiz pazar için bir etkinlik yapmayalım. Yani böyle yorumlarla karşılaşıyorsak Bu kadar. Ben çok teşekkür ediyorum. Gerçekten
Çok
de Ghent gibi İstanbul'da bir sihirli değnekle değiştirmek isteriz. Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Çok teşekkürler yorumunuz için. Let me just briefly summarize the comment because I realized that you didn't have. So she was saying that like Ghent, we wish that we could change Istanbul overnight as well. Particularly, her emphasis was on the bike lanes. That Istanbul has some bike lanes, however, the usage, the allocation of space over time can change, and sometimes other infrastructural projects can make the bike lane unusable. Plus, she also mentioned about the bus drivers and that there is a tension between the public transport buses and bike users. That brings us to an issue that, in fact, all of you have mentioned, education, awareness, and also some awareness-raising projects are being carried out in Istanbul, so she has also mentioned those. However, sometimes the awareness-raising projects also get a reaction from car users that the roads are being closed. So I think listening to all of you, this would be a comment that I would make as well about the awareness raising, about involvement of the public as well. But I won't make my comment because there was another question or comment there. Yes, please. Peki. After that, I will. Yes.
Okay. I have two questions. I don't know if there's enough time. Is for the I don't know the name, but it's the presentation of Helsinki.
Susa.
Sorry, Susan. The question is that the first that you mentioned us that you were telling us to reallocating the sites to make it sustainable, like trying to work with what we have. So regarding this, I'm a planning student, and in my studio class I have always this thoughts that should I rebuild the site, or should I try to play with what I have and try to make it more sustainable, or try to make it work? So there is one question that came to my mind always when I was doing this. If I am doing something that is totally wrong, that is totally mistaken, and I'm trying to make it right, but I know that it's going to be, it will sustain the wrong cycle. Maybe at first sight it will be okay, but then it will be broken, since the problem is in the first stage. So what do you think about this? If there is a case that is, should we still try to work with what we have in such cases when it is totally mistaken? And can I ask also my second question, if that's okay? It's Meers, I think your name is. Okay, sorry, the question is basically we all know the policies that you mentioned about the bifurcation stuff, but there's also another question that comes. There is a huge important when we talk about the mobility in the cities, about regarding the housing policy. In Turkey, in our cases, I think most of the cases is about the housing crisis. People are using the travel in mostly commuting, and in Turkey, what we see is like regarding the rents, they mostly push themselves to suburban or somewhere it's much more available to different modes. So in this kind, what do you do? Like, do you have different regulations in terms of how, like different housing policies to empower the impact of your bicycling in your cities regarding housing policy?
Yes, thank you. I will try to answer shortly, and then we can continue the discussion afterwards. So it's a really good point that you pointed out, that it's sometimes difficult to reallocate the existing structures if they are not an adequate level. It's also often the case in Finland, but more often it's also about the unwillingness to prioritize clearly. So what usually happens is that we are still trying to, in a way, provide equally good for all modes of transportation, and when we try to do that in a limited space, it's not actually good for anybody. And usually then the response that we give to that one is to plan and build new infrastructure. We have also today heard many great examples of new infrastructure, but then it comes back to the planetary boundary conditions, that if we know that building new infrastructure causes emissions, we know it takes away the resources that we have available. We are in a very fundamental question. So I would say here that it's we can do, of course, these solutions in all of the individual projects, but if we are very unwilling to prioritize between these modes on a very strategic level, then we won't kind of reach the good conclusions as were done, for example, in Ghent. I think that's an excellent example of how to, in a way, switch the whole way of thinking.
Thanks for your question. I find you made me think myself. Interesting question. The situation in Ghent is a bit different because before the 90s, the rich people were fleeing away from the city and living suburban. So it's more these people that used to travel by car to the inner city, while poorer people lived actually in or close to the city center. Now, since the 90s, you have this re-urbanization process where richer people and gentrification and so on. So this brings up this challenge as well. But the scale of my city still allows people who live in the suburbs to cycle to the inner city. I mean, not if they work in the port, for instance. But since a few years, we're also working much more on transport poverty. And some of the things mentioned in the other presentation, giving dedicated cycling lessons, giving incentives for people to purchase a bike or to make use of shared bike systems and so on. These are things that we are trying to focus on. But it's a bit similar, like you explained in the Netherlands. Rich people tend to cycle much more than poor people. They rely much more on public transport. And the issue with public transport in my country is that it's a regional matter and not a local matter. So we have very few possibilities to impact on public transport itself. So that for us, I think, could make a big difference if we have more to say on public transport. Because it's not necessarily, and I think in Istanbul, in 2012, we already had a high share of people using bikes. Here it might be completely different, but it's not necessarily the solution. I mean, public transport and a well-organized transport system can be much of a solution in other cities, I believe.
Thank you. Before we complete, one final question from there, and then we will end the session.
Evet, ben Engin. Benim sorum tüm katılımcılar olacak aslında. Şehirlerde, kentimizde veya kentlerinizde bisiklet kullanımını arttırmak için bir sıralamaya sokarsak, bisikletleri önceleyen yasal altyapıların ve yönetmeliklerin güçlendirilmesi mi, bisiklet altyapısının güçlendirilmesi ve bisikletli farkındalık çalışmaları olarak 3 gruba ayırdığımızda bunları nasıl sıralayabilirsiniz? Ben kendi adıma Türkiye için konuştuğumda Türkiye'de yasal olarak trafikteki bisiklet haklarını yeterince önceliklendirilmediğini ve denetlenmediğini düşünüyorum. Diğer taraftan yönetmeliğin de, şu anki mevcut bisiklet yönetmeliğinin de bizim şehirlerimizde yeterli çözümleri sunmaktan uzak olduğunu düşünüyorum. Örneğin biz Hollanda'da bisiklet süren bir çocuğun videosunu izledik. Aynı çocuk Türkiye'de sürdüğünde yasal olarak cezalı konuma geliyor. Çünkü 11 yaşından küçük çocukların velisiyle beraber bisiklet sürmeleri yasak. Diğer taraftan araçların, otomobillerin konuk olduğu, bisiklet ve yayanın öncelikli olduğu yol tipini gördük fotoğraflarda. Yine bizim kendi yönetmeliğimizde böyle bir bisiklet öncelikli veya yaya öncelikli yol tanımı maalesef yok. Bu da şehir merkezlerimizin kentsel sit alanı olduğu, koruma alanı olduğu yerlerde bisiklet ulaşım altyapısını güçlendirmemizi zorlaştırıyor. Son olarak da konferans yöneticileri bir şeyden bahsetmek istiyorum. Ben buraya bisikletle geldim. Otopark trafiği çekmeden direkt buraya bisiklete kolayca ulaşabildim. Ancak bisikletimi park edebilecek güvenli bir alan bulamadım. Özellikle dayanıklılık temasıyla ve sürdürülebilirliğin önde olduğu bir konferans düzenlenirken kapalı bir park alanının bisikletlilere ayrılmasını beklerdim açıkçası. Teşekkür ederim.
If I may, I would like to give the word first to you, but I will just summarize the question, or let's say briefly say, how would you prioritize the following three for bicycle, for promoting bicycle usage? Legislation for bicycle usage, infrastructure for bicycle usage, awareness raising, and education for bicycle usage. Okay. In Turkey. Mike, can you open up the mic? I think, what does that mean?
It's working now. Okay, so I was saying Istanbul, I mean, the Netherlands is not Istanbul, and you have a different geography, a different history, so it's difficult to say. But I think they're all three important, but it starts, of course, by awareness and education and the will of people to change the city. I think if there's no cry or no energy or no activism from the population, there's also no impulse probably to change. So awareness, participation in decision making will maybe explore the possibilities that are there. And there's also many good examples already done in Istanbul. Some of you mentioned there is some way of intermodality. You can take your cycle on the metro, on the ferries. There are some cycle paths, but they are not connected. And I think with many of my staff members, they use electric bikes to overcome the high distances. But I think still in legislation, in liability, in training, it was mentioned about the buses, about the cars. I think the benefits of change should be clear to individuals and to policy making. So these kind of conferences and exchanges are very valuable. I don't think I dare to make a ranking of that prioritization, but awareness and education and sharing practices and see how they can be tailor-made for the Istanbul circumstances, that would be my advice. And there are some other cities in Turkey that have the more favorable geography, and they're much more, I think, benefiting and exploring this potential. Like Eskişehir, I talked yesterday, or Izmir. I think those cities, you see that the potential of cycling is there, the awareness is there, there's also activism, but it's still looked upon a little bit like, how to say, an inferior thing of looking at. And I think this is maybe also an appeal to all of you to make your voice heard and make your contribution to giving the bicycle a place in society. So long answer, sorry. Yeah.
Exactly. Also, yeah. Also, as we are closely working with the City of Istanbul, and this also related to the project I brought here, this bicyfication. What it tried to achieve also to, let's say, accomplish this both components of bicycle promotion in terms of planning and awareness creating, because I didn't go deeper into the details of the project, but I more emphasized on the economic incentive mechanism it created, which leads to, which aims to lead to the behavioral change. But it also, this technological solution comes with an, let's say, extension for cities to track the real time travel behavior of their citizens, so they can embed it into the planning, so they can do more info, at least just as a start to improve or to invest in the new infrastructure, so to say. So what I can say that this, at least two components or two areas can be addressed, for example, with a small technological solution like that. I mean, there are solutions that we can address more than one areas of active mobility promotion, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Let's wrap up this session. I would like to thank all our presenters, and I would like to thank all of you for participating. Just very briefly, I want to say that in fact all what I got from all the presentations were that the presenters underlined the need for a radical fundamental change in our cities, in our urban areas, built-up areas, from all four fundamental changes needed or transformation is needed. And our first speaker had finished by saying, are we bold enough? Are we ready to do this? And from the Ghent example, we saw that we could be bold to do it overnight. And we have seen some infrastructural interventions from both of the speakers into the built environment. But also all of those came with some ongoing side programs of education, involvement of the citizens, stakeholder involvement, information to the citizens, awareness raising, also training, so awareness raising for the whole public, but also training for the policymakers, decision makers, experts. So I guess in any plan we have to think of the infrastructural transformation together with perhaps this soft package of awareness raising, education, training, information, participation, stakeholder involvement. So let me wrap up with these last words. Thank you very much once again. Thanks.